Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Monday. Great to see you. Hope that we are having a wonderful start to the week out there. And we got a lot to discuss today, from the tropics to potential severe weather and an overall pattern change on the way for much of the lower 48. And I'm going to tell you who could see that severe weather, who could see some snowfall, and who, unfortunately, is really going to dig into these drought conditions over the next 10 plus days. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Hit that bell for the latest notifications, like the video, and comment. Let me know where you're watching from and kind of what you're hoping for as we go into November. And again, you'll get kind of a general idea of what to expect, at least through the first week or so. But tell me what you want to see. Do you want it to be cold? Do you want it to be warm? Personally, I love fall, so if we could continue the fall conditions through November and even get a couple of nice cool shots, that'd be pretty exciting for me. But unfortunately, spoiler alert for those of us in the Carolinas, not a lot of that on the horizon, unfortunately. And again, we'll look at that more in depth. Alrighty, so I did want to quickly show you this, and this is kind of, I try to make the channel a little bit more personable, I guess is the word, every now and then. And this is something I did this morning, and this video is coming out about 30 minutes later than I hoped it would because of it. It is Monday after all, and I started my coffee pot and never put my cup under it. So that's the kind of morning I was having. Hopefully, again, you're having a better start to the week than maybe I did. Yeah, first time I've done that ever, I think. So I can kind of mark that off the to-do list, if you will. So yeah, just wanted to show you that as I think it's kind of kind of funny. So hopefully you get a laugh out of that as well. All right, now back to the weather. Current look at kind of the area in the tropics that we're watching, and we're going to start with the tropics. Is down here into the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, kind of Southwest Atlantic area. Now, the National Hurricane Center has added an area to watch here, and you can kind of see the beginning of why. We are starting to get some thunderstorm activity down here into the extreme southwestern part of the Caribbean, and this is the start of what could potentially become our next named storm, which would be Patty. And Patty does have the potential, folks, to become a hurricane. It is not out of the question. And if it does become a hurricane, it's very likely to impact somebody. Anytime you get a storm in the Caribbean, it's really tough to not get a landfall somewhere. As you can kind of see, the Caribbean is almost enclosed off on all sides by some sort of land or islands. So definitely something we need to watch here for that potential. But right now, things remain calm. Definitely thunderstorm activity increasing. But we're not seeing, anything major jumping out as, this wants to become a storm right away. But that could change over the next couple of days. And because of that, the National Hurricane Center has introduced a 40% chance. Let me scroll down a little bit so you can kind of read it while I talk about it. Has introduced a 40% chance of development over the next 7 days here through the southwest, not southwest, Southwest Caribbean Sea. As again, a broad area of low pressure is expected to develop. So we're going to kind of have this Central American gyre pattern. The question is, can something come of it? And we're going to kind of do what we did yesterday. I thought it went really well. Let's start by looking at the ingredients. Before we take a look at any models and just jump into deterministic runs, let's take a look at the ingredients out there and say, well, is this even favorable for something to develop? And then we'll look at some of the deterministic runs and the ensembles and kind of get a better idea of if things are lining up. All right, first thing you need for tropical development, you need warm ocean temperatures. Generally, I think 78 degrees or 76 degrees Fahrenheit is kind of the cutoff between this can produce something tropical and this can't. And in this case, this is probably 24 or 25 degrees Celsius would be the metric here. And you'll notice in the Caribbean where we have that potential, I mean, yeah, we still have very warm ocean temperatures here. Again, folks, we're not quite into winter yet, so the sea surface temperatures have not cooled down. Also, water just cools slower than land, so we may be getting these cold fronts, but it's not going to immediately, bring the ocean temperatures back down to wintertime temperatures. It's going to stay quite warm through probably even November and December. And oftentimes, that's kind of what creates these big-time baroclinic zones across the East Coast that could lead to some big-time snowstorms. And, we'll talk about that later on down the road. But again, just kind of the meteorology behind that is the oceans are not cooling down significantly anytime soon. And because of that, we do still have favorable conditions in that department. Now, next thing you need a lack of wind shear. So this map is our wind shear anomaly from our GFS ensemble. So this is not just one deterministic run. Again, these are a bunch of ensembles thrown together. It's a great tool to use. And to explain it to you, red is above average wind shear, blue is below average wind shear. So for tropical development, you want to see that blue overlapping with those warm ocean temperatures. So again, kind of just keep an eye down here specifically where the NHC has that area of potential development. You'll notice right now a lot of wind shear in the vicinity. Now, not so much right down kind of near Panama itself. Lower wind shear values or more average wind shear values. And that's kind of why, we're seeing some of the thunderstorm activity currently in that region, because that's where some of the most favorable upper level winds are. Now we'll move this further ahead into time. This gets us into Halloween itself, and you're noticing, you're like, all right, well, there's still a ton of wind shear out here. Yeah, definitely, but there is a pocket here of some lower wind shear, again, where maybe potentially that beginning area of formation occurs. And by the time we get through the first week in November, this is this coming Saturday, November 2nd. Still a lot of wind shear, but you still notice that little pocket there of favorable winds. And then eventually blue really takes over. And by the time we get 7 to 10 days from now, kind of close to Election Day, we've got a real lack of wind shear, folks, through the Gulf and the Caribbean. So should something form out here and maybe even pull its way up north towards the Gulf or towards the Bahamas, could be dealing with a pretty favorable upper level environment. So what can we take away from that? Currently, overall, the environment is unfavorable, but there is a pocket there, again, where that development is most likely to occur of some lower wind shear values. And by the time we get about a week or so from now, the wind shear values should really drop off, and we should see a much higher chance of or a much more favorable environment. All right, what about moisture content? Humidity is another thing. You need high humidity values for tropical storms to be sustained, and that's something we're not running against right now. There's plenty of moisture down here into the southern Caribbean. This is getting into this weekend. You'll notice a little bit of dry air from a front or two trying to swing on in, but overall a very moist environment in the Caribbean through at least the next week, and then we get way out into time and you notice, all right, well, here comes all of this dry air. So hopefully that'll help us out in the long run, but in the short term, at least the next 7 to 8 days, a real lack of any sort of dry air to disrupt anything out in this part of the world. All right, so those are all the ingredients. Now let's look at some ensembles, and then we'll look at some operational runs, and then we'll kind of move on here. But starting with the GFS ensembles, this is for Halloween evening, and you'll notice, here we go. We've got plenty of ensemble members showing up in that area that I showed you that had the most favorable wind shear values. So it makes sense that this is where we would see maybe that low pressure form. And the GFS does that and really kind of blows this up. By the time we get to, 6 or so days from right now, you're noticing a lot of these members bringing some sort of storm system northward towards Jamaica, Cuba, Hispaniola. And then this is where a bit of an interesting trend has happened, I would say, overnight, is in the ensembles at least. We'll get this to 7 to 10 days from now. And notice a lot of these members now are trying to pull this a little bit further west, which would give it a higher chance of getting into the Gulf of Mexico, and then obviously a higher chance of maybe United States impacts on down the road. And you can kind of see that here with all of these members pulling up north, past 10 days at this point, but north generally towards the state of Florida. So something we need to watch, but first and foremost, Jamaica, Cuba, Hispaniola, you folks are the ones that really need to watch it in the more near term for potential development and potential impacts, as again, you would be first in line. But even if we do get a storm to form, I do think any sort of landfall or direct impacts are still going to be about a week plus away from happening. So got plenty of time to monitor it still. And it's not just the GFS ensembles, folks. The European ensembles and the European operational run has been very lackluster, but the ensembles, look at this, really latching onto this idea a little bit more, and almost all of them taking this western track, up towards Cuba and the Gulf of Mexico, and then past 10 days getting this into the Gulf as some sort of storm maybe that could, bring problems to somebody. So definitely something to watch there. All right, let's take a look at some operational runs. And we're going to kind of swing on through this a little bit quicker because, again, the models are not still in great agreement, but I will show them to you just for full transparency. All right, GFS model, here we go. This is Halloween, still nothing really significant, but it's the days after Halloween. The GFS does spin this area up in that section of the Caribbean, but this is a much further east storm than maybe some of the ensembles showed. So definitely some differences here between the operational run and its ensembles. and you'll see the same thing with the European as well, but does form a storm and gets it close to, if not at, hurricane strength, and then impacts Hispaniola about a week from today, and then pulls it up into the Bahamas, and then kind of shreds it pretty quickly with some dry air, and then kind of just meanders around for a little while. So that's the GFS operational run. Again, it has been very consistent with a storm forming, but kind of all over the place with strength and track and kind of intensity and all the other things that are very important for forecasting. All right, so that's the GFS. What about the European? And remember, I just showed you the European ensembles, which did show a storm kind of getting into the Western Caribbean and up into the Gulf. So does the operational run show the same thing? Well, here we go. This is just after Halloween. This is getting into the 1st of November. You'll notice an L or an area of low pressure kind of beginning to form, although very broad down here into the Caribbean. And it kind of stays that way on the European. The European has not really budged yet and continues to just show this big, broad area of spin. And then about 10 days from now or so, does get this big spin into the Western Caribbean, which again would be more concerning track-wise. Now, granted, this is still weak, but track-wise would be more, something we would need to watch in the United States at least, again, as this could potentially get pulled up into the Gulf and could be a bigger problem. But, we'll wait and see. And the good news is the further we get into November, the more cold fronts that are kind of swinging on through here. And that's more dry air that's going to get brought into the Gulf and going to kind of slowly, but, definitely help by bringing those sea surface temperatures down as well. So the Gulf is not quite as prime as it was maybe a month or two ago, but still would need to watch if a storm gets into it for the potential of big time development. All right, the Canadian model. Now, the Canadian model really jumped on board with the GFS about a day or two ago and continues that train, develops a storm down here by this coming weekend. This is Friday into Saturday, November 2nd, and develops this quickly into a hurricane by about a week from now, and then into a major hurricane in the 10-day time frame, and is again shooting for the Gulf of Mexico as a major hurricane. So definitely something to watch there. And that's kind of, I would say, the most concerning track for us in the United States, at least, is kind of what the Canadian is doing, forming a strong hurricane in the Caribbean and then pulling it towards the Gulf. Would definitely be kind of, I would say, the worst case scenario with this storm. Not to say that that is what's going to happen, but to show you it is a potential here on the table. So those are kind of three models I'm watching, and you'll notice big differences between all of them. But overall, I think confidence has increased that something is going to try to form here in the Gulf of Mexico here over the next kind of week or so. Okay, so that's the tropics. So let's talk about the lower 48 now and kind of what to expect with this pattern change, the severe weather potential, snowfall potential, temperatures, and kind of everything else that you might care about. Now we'll start in the east, and today, again, pretty quiet out here, still dealing with these fire concerns into the northeast along the I-95 corridor from DC up through Boston, and even up into southern New Hampshire there. Also, seeing a couple of showers in the state of Florida today. We do have kind of the general flow off the Atlantic here, which is bringing a little bit of some ocean effect, if you want to call it that, into the Sunshine State. So a couple of showers, especially kind of I-4 corridor southbound, are going to be possible today, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Other than that, folks, I mean, if you're east of the Mississippi, there's nothing happening right now. Now, that's going to change for sure. Especially along the Mississippi River Valley itself through the week ahead, but still a couple more days of kind of not so active weather out this way. Now we move this towards the plains. Again, a fire threat today through Oklahoma and up through the Texas Panhandle, through much of the state of Kansas, back into Kansas City. Again, this boundary is setting up, so becoming very warm into this region, while these very cold temperatures remain into the Rockies. That is favorable for a sharp temperature gradient in between, kind of right into here, and that is favorable to kind of pick up those wind gusts. So that combined with dry conditions at the surface and drought concerns that are ongoing, we will need to watch for a bit of a fire concern into this afternoon and really through the next couple of days before rain begins to work on through into that region. Now, all the active weather remains out west. High elevation snow, low elevation rain. We've got winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings up from Yellowstone all the way down through the mountains of Utah and Colorado. And again, it has snowed a lot in some of these areas, and it will continue to snow, especially kind of into this region right in here, where we could pick up a couple more feet of snow in some of these highest elevations throughout the next couple of days, and really even more than that through the next 10 days, where it looks to stay quite snowy for sure. All right, so our upper level wind map, and I'm trying to remember why I was going to show this. Okay, yeah, I think I remember now. So through the week ahead, again, the theme is going to be kind of a clashing of air masses. So we've got this big ridge in the east that keeps things warm, but at the same time, you'll notice all these upper level winds picking up kind of over the Rockies and eventually over the plains by the middle of the week as we get this big time trough to swing on through. Now, the reason for this, kind of is what I said earlier, we've got a big temperature gradient. It's very warm into this region due to this ridge, and then it's much cooler into the Rockies here due to this trough. So what's in between? Well, we get this kind of jet stream to get enhanced and even a bit of a jet streak showing up, which could be conducive for a lot of lift and some severe weather potential as well. Now, the good news is this trough is very positively tilted in nature. Well, I say positively, maybe positively to neutrally tilted, just meaning that it's not the strongest front we've ever seen for sure. We've seen much stronger troughs and fronts out of this sort of setup, but it is enough to bring a severe weather potential early in the week. And that won't be the end of it, folks. We're going to see multiple dumpings of these troughs out west. Another big one there this weekend into next week. That could bring another big severe weather potential. And then kind of moves on through in the 10-day time frame. So the next 10 days look very active into the plains and the Rockies for severe weather and snowfall. As for us in the east, depending on how far east you are, you could also get in on some rain, but others, I mean, these drought conditions are really going to start to become a problem soon, and I'll show you why in just a moment. All right, taking a look at, again, the new up-and-coming WeatherWise app or website. They have both, so definitely check this out if you haven't already. But severe weather potential starts tomorrow, so I'll show you today. Again, nothing of real concern, maybe a couple thunderstorms in those shaded areas, but tomorrow is when the severe weather potential kicks up. A marginal risk from kind of northern and central Minnesota from Duluth all the way back down towards portions of Oklahoma there, including Wichita, Lincoln, Nebraska, Omaha, Sioux City, Sioux Falls, and then kind of down here towards the Elk City, Clinton, and Woodward area of Oklahoma. Now, tomorrow is a bit of a conditional threat, so it's one of those days where not everyone will see a storm, but those of you that do see a storm will have the potential for it to be pretty feisty. But I think things really pick up Wednesday afternoon, and the Storm Prediction Center agrees here with kind of this big old lemon showing up with a slight risk in effect in the yellow for really much of Oklahoma, from Oklahoma City back to Tulsa. And I'll try to zoom in. I know some of these cities are hard to read, but I'll try to list some out here. Fort Smith, Arkansas, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Norman, and then kind of up towards Joplin and into the Kansas City area, and then even back down towards Wichita under that slight risk. Now, marginal risk is going to extend all the way from Cedar Rapids back down towards Austin, Texas. So a big area of concern definitely for our Wednesday, and I think all hazards will be on the table here. Strong straight line winds, hail potential, and even a tornado threat going to be possible for really both days, but Wednesday especially, I think. All right, so we're going to time out the near term here, and we'll start in the east. We'll get into this afternoon, I mean, really, it's going to be quiet again, folks. We do still have a little bit of cold air damming left over into the mid-Atlantic, so not super cold, but enough that it's probably chillier than other areas, again, getting very warm into the southern plains, but remaining cooler up here into the mid-Atlantic and into kind of the eastern side of the Appalachia chain from, we'll say, the Carolinas northbound. But again, warming up into the southern plains, and that will be a concern for sure. Now, we get this into overnight tonight. Again, more of the same, not a lot. A couple showers off the Carolina coastline. But things do begin to pick up a little bit as we see kind of, you'll notice low pressure picking up back out into the plains. And with that, we have a bit of a warm front extending northward. And with that, we are going to see some shower activity pick up overnight tomorrow into Tuesday through the Great Lakes region from Wisconsin into Michigan, up into the UP even, and then back towards Minnesota. And unfortunately, no snow. But I will tell you one thing, folks. The longer it stays warm out here, the warmer these lakes are going to get. And when lake effect season comes in a couple of weeks, we could see some big-time lake effect snow. Absolutely, for the normal places that see it, but that's something to keep your eye on up here. I know you're probably wondering, where's winter? It is November at this point. It'll be almost well, I guess this is still before Halloween, but it's getting close to November. We've yet to really see any appreciable snow up here, which isn't totally uncommon, but generally by October, you start to get some of those flakes. And remaining quite warm. So a bit strange, but could really enhance our lake effect season once that arrives into November. Now, that front swings on through. Again, this is a warm front kind of pushing up north and bringing those showers with it by Tuesday afternoon here, continuing and even working on through the northeast. And what that's doing, folks, I mean, this is bringing our warm conveyor belt really up north. And this is again, going to keep things quite toasty, but also it's going to fuel severe weather potential into the plains as we get some of that wind energy to overlap with those thermodynamics, and that's a recipe for some severe weather. So again, that warm front swings on through. That would be Tuesday afternoon up into Wednesday. But again, in the southeast through West Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, still nothing. I mean, it's just not raining. I don't know what to tell you. We had a little bit of rain over the weekend. Some of us did, that is, not everybody. And it is continuing to remain unbelievably dry into this part of the country, which, I mean, granted, we had Helene, so it's good that we had a break, but we're getting to the point now where we're going to add insult to injury with wildfires and drought if we don't get some rain down here of significance soon. Now, not to say we want half a foot in one go, obviously, but a good inch to 2 inch rainfall could really do wonders for a lot of these folks if we spread it out over a 24 to 48 hour time frame. All right, so that's the east. What about out west over the next 48 hours? Well, again, it's Stormageddon, if you will, with round after round of precipitation, high elevation snowfall, low elevation showers, and again, even a couple thunderstorms possible out here. But it's really overnight tonight and into Tuesday afternoon that you'll notice our storm system kind of begins to eject, and you'll notice all of this precipitation into the Rockies, very heavy mountain snowfall, and even some heavy valley rain. But here comes that low pressure. And again, this is going to kick up that wildfire threat or that brush fire threat out here through the plains for our Tuesday, as again, very strong winds are going to begin. It's going to remain dry until probably Tuesday afternoon. And you'll notice here comes Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening. And this is the point that we have that marginal threat. This is getting well into the evening hours, but you'll notice nothing really showing up on radar into that Tuesday marginal threat. And that's why I said it's very conditional. If the atmosphere, if the cap happens to break and we get some storms to fire, definitely could become quite strong to severe. But there's also a chance that not many storms form on Tuesday in general. But what will be happening is, again, big time mountain snow through Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming, and even some of that precipitation getting pulled up into the Dakotas and northern Minnesota that could try to change to a little bit of snow here overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. This is as far out as this model goes, but you get the idea there with that cold air and that precipitation kind of starting to mix a little bit. All right, so the kind of week ahead in a more zoomed out picture, we'll kind of pick up where we left off. We'll go into Wednesday morning. So here we go. Here's our low pressure. We've got that snow breaking out through the northern Rockies and rain trying to change to a little bit of snow through the Dakotas. Not expecting a big event out of that, but definitely could see some snowflakes. But here comes our front. Here's our low pressure. Again, our warm front extending well up into Canada at this point. Our cold front extending back down into the plains. And this is what is going to potentially fire up some of that severe weather Wednesday afternoon. So here we go into the afternoon hours of Wednesday. You'll notice some storms firing up along this cold front. And again, all hazards on the table, so need to watch for Wednesday afternoon for that potential of severe weather. Now, we get this into Halloween. This is the afternoon of Halloween. Our low pressure at this point has pulled up well north into Canada, but our front lingers, pretty far south. And I think severe weather going to really die down at this point, but heavy rainfall could continue. We're going to have a lot of vertical vorticity here and a good amount of lifting along this front. So from Memphis down towards portions of the Texas Gulf Coast, who has not seen rain in a while and could really use it, up even into the Ohio River Valley. Could see some rain for our Halloween, which, it's kind of unfortunate. You wait all this time for rain, and then it finally rains on a holiday that you might have plans for. But we need the rain, so we'll take it for sure. And then that kind of tries to move east, folks. But again, the front just dies out. We get frontalysis to occur and just struggles to cross the Appalachia chain. And because of that, we go a whole nother work week without rain in the east. But after that, another storm system out west develops. continues to kind of do the whole process again. Severe weather, heavy rainfall. That one also does not cross the Appalachia chain. Another one behind that early next week. This one looks quite potent, I will say. About a week or so from now, this one could bring big time snow and severe weather with it. But once again, I mean, we get 10 days out and not a single one of these storm systems are crossing the Appalachia chain. All that rain, really, the Mississippi River Valley up into the Midwest, westbound through the plains, the Northeast, the Southeast, the Mid-Atlantic, really struggling to get in on any rain of significance. So, that's unfortunate for sure. All right, so quickly, just to show you this, this is kind of a good way to show our warm conveyor belt, or you might hear it labeled as the low-level jet during severe weather season. This is going to be kind of what produces that severe weather, and you'll notice it definitely upticks Tuesday into Wednesday. This conveyor belt of very warm, humid air that kind of pulls northbound, that could promote severe weather. Then it gets beaten down a little bit by that first front, but then pulls northward again with another big surge by next week, and that again could return severe weather to the forecast about a week or so from now. And that could be even a bigger severe weather threat than the one we're going to see kind of Tuesday into Wednesday of this week. That warm conveyor belt, I mean, it hangs around for a while in the 10-day range. So the severe weather potential doesn't look to be going anywhere. Another thing that doesn't look to be going anywhere is Rocky Mountain snow. This is through the next 10 days. I mean, we're going to be counting it in feet up here through Yellowstone, the higher terrains of the Cascades, the Sierra Nevadas, back down through Colorado, up into Idaho, Utah. Really just a pretty incredible amount of snow on the way. And I'll add, definitely could see some snow that breaks containment of the Rockies in a couple places through the 10-day time frame, but nothing really set in stone right now with that, but I'll keep you updated for sure. Rainfall-wise over the next 10 days, I don't know what to tell you folks in the Carolinas, Virginia, and Georgia. I mean, this is the blend of models. So this is all the models put together and kind of an average or a mean taken of the best ones and, using that. It really just not anything happening down here. So Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, we could go another 10 days of no rain. My buddy Mitch in Columbia said he hasn't gotten rain since Helene, and he's probably not going to get it through the first week in November. So we could break some records for dry spells out here for sure. Would not be surprised at all to see that into portions of the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast. But a lot of rain through the plains, and this is going to help because we do have drought concerns out here from Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, up into the Midwest. So that will definitely be good news for you folks. But outside of that, no rain in the Southeast, which unfortunately really could come and catch up with us eventually with some wildfire concerns. Alrighty, folks, appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and you haven't already, subscribe, hit that bell for the latest notifications, like the video, and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. With that said, have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Enjoy it, stay safe, and I'll see you all tomorrow.